Welcome back to TechMake TV. Your host, I'm with Mr. Jeremy Youmans, the Chief Finance Director for Paramount Garments, Paramount Exports, which also owns Paramount Archer in Bulawayo, Zimbabwe's biggest clothing manufacturing company. And actually, they have had multiple awards on being the largest exporter, starting from being the most improved exporter when it comes to manufacturing. Mr. Jeremy Youmans, welcome back to the second half of our interview. Most viewers will not be aware that the clothing industry actually holds a sort of key in the production of oil, cooking oil, that is used for cooking. Right now there is a war that is going on in Ukraine, which is said to be affecting the production of cooking oil worldwide. And for some reason, cooking oil has even gone up locally in Zimbabwe. It used to be $2 something, and then it went to $3, an average of $3 $3.30 for a 2-liter cooking oil. Now it is fetching an average of $5, $5.50, almost double a price that has just been caused because the production of cooking oil that we import has become high. So if you can expagorate to the viewers how as a country we can be able to use this cotton clothing, this industry, to be able to produce our own cooking oil, and as you were rightly saying, be able to reinvest in the locals whilst we are making the cooking oil. Why is it that we are selling the raw materials that are used to make cooking oil instead of us making the cooking oil? Why are we having a problem? Right now, as I have just cited, cooking oil is $5.50. It almost doubled. And worldwide, it is in short supply because of the ongoing war. So, as a country, can you advise the authorities that are responsible? Already, Paramount Garments, you are in the garment business, and it is this same clothing that is a link to making cooking oil. So, we'll take it.
The link is through, obviously, the cotton, and the real secret is that cotton seed. And what you've just said is a wonderful example of why we need to support buying local and local production. Because, as we say, sometimes people will complain it's about price or whatever else, but buying local and supporting your local manufacturer is an investment in the future. And forgetting the pandemic, we were all going along nicely and the economy was working, let's say. Roughly everything was okay, and we certainly didn't have a problem on the supply of cooking oil. But then a country that many people may not even know where it is or may not have even heard of gets invaded and has a war with Russia, thousands and thousands of kilometers from here, and it is affecting us here. That fundamentally is a problem.
Yes. And
the real cause is because we haven't been supporting our own local industry to enable that value chain to be developed, because it has fallen over. We used to produce huge tons of cooking oil through cottonseed alone, but even the soya bean production has gone way down. And now we're at the whim of a war being happening, whatever it is, 10,000 kilometers away in Europe, because we have not supported our own industry.
Yes.
And this is exactly why we, not only as Paramount, but as the clothing sector and through the other stakeholders, must get ourselves together, lead it, and get our cotton value chain working. And why we need everybody to participate in that, be it government, be it supporting the policies, whatever, to build our base of local production, certainly on base commodities like that, so that when there is a war somewhere else, or a flood, or a major disaster of any kind,
Yes.
we are protected from that. We've de-risked ourselves by industrialization. You see, our biggest exports out of this country are the mining sector and agriculture sector, and those figures all look fine, but they're all subject to a major shock internationally, which we then import into Zimbabwe, and it's forced upon us, including inflation, which is world inflation is driving up the price of cooking oil, our fuel, everything else. We need to de-risk ourselves, and the way to do that is to invest in the future through industrialization, through value chains, and industrialization of our own economy, so that when those international shocks happen, we are de-risked in that because we're manufacturing ourselves. And it is this strategy that we've been following of very short-term policies that haven't realized the industrialization and economic growth we need that have put us in this position. So right now we have no better example as to how we got affected from something that should have nothing to do with us. But it is having a major impact because we didn't successfully pursue those strategies of industrialization and supporting our own local manufacturers right across the board, not just in our value chain. But our value chain is a very good example of it.
Yes. The Buy Zim campaign is a very fundamental thing that as Paramount Garments you are running with. All your products are locally made, and you are able to permeate international markets and be able to produce what the international market embraces. As a matter of fact, you were the top overall exporter to the EU. There is an award here that you were given by Zimtrade, which shows that you were the overall exporter to the European Union. And Europe obviously means that they are bringing forex to the country. So you are playing a fundamental critical role that is enabling the Zimbabwean economy, and you cannot be ignored when you point to any anomaly that should be rectified. In fact, His Excellency, the President of Zimbabwe, President Emerson Mnangagwa, last year, at the height of the pandemic, at the height of COVID, his first tour was at one of your companies, Archer, which is in Bulawayo. And that was his first port of call because he realizes that it is the largest manufacturing for garments in that region. Not only that, your company, which runs Archer in Bulawayo, it actually produces 2 million garments. I just discovered annually 2 million garments. If you're able to shed light for us on your production for Archer and how that it's playing critically in the cotton to clothing value chain.
Well, Archer is a key part of our strategy. It had gone into liquidation in 2010,
Yes.
and we went in to support it in 2013 and finally got approval to buy it in 2015. It will end up in a number of people as the largest manufacturer. It was very important to us to revive it just because of what it stood for, and certainly we're very proud of the role we want to play in Bulawayo, which used to be the industrial hub of Zimbabwe and had gone through a lot of trauma. That Archer meant a lot to a lot of people, and that's why we've maintained the name, and it is Archer, and it does play our way. We have a significant amount of growth opportunity still to do there, where the constraints are less. So there was an investment we made. It's had a long time to pay back, and we are struggling to get the number of skilled people, as we said earlier, in there. But Archer is fundamental to our path going forward. And as I said, they will end up producing more garments than we do here in the Harare factory. But we also have developed there a leather company, where we produce our own goods from Zimbabwean leather and are exporting that. So we hope to develop that out. At the moment, we've been making it goods that complement our workwear. So there'll be mainly gloves and aprons and spats and things like that. But we have now developed it into shoes and handbags and leather jackets and so forth. So there will be the two ends. That will depend on the quality of the leather. Hide's always been available, but as I said, there's this wonderful synergy from that cotton seed that once the oil is expressed out of it into the seed cake that can feed the beef industry, that when we then slaughter the beef to get the meat, we've got a lovely hide there that can be used for the leather industry.
Wow.
So it really is, when you lay it out, quite simple and doesn't really need that much except cooperation and the confidence to do it, the courage to do it, and the commitment to do it. And that's what we want to play our part in those three aspects, and through ACFAS to develop this whole chain. So even our leather company would then successfully benefit from developing the cotton chain.
Wow, that's just a revelation that the Zimbabweans would gladly embrace. You know, you are producing even leather now, not just the coats that you produce, school uniforms, the garments, the overalls, personal protective clothing. In fact, looking around here, I can even see that you produce attire for Pizza Inn just behind you. All these garments that are here, protective clothing. You've become a household name as Paramount Garments. It means that all the mines virtually in the country, they also buy your clothing, you know, so that they are safe in their mines. And mining is said to be the largest foreign currency earner in the country. So if they are able to work because you have provided the safety clothing, then it means that you are also part of raking in the money that contributes to the fiscus. And not only that, the company we're talking about, which you bought after it was liquidated, Archer, now Paramount Archer, it's producing, and 60% of its manufactured products are actually exported to the European market and wherever else internationally. 60% of its productions. So to me, that shows that you have a deliberate policy as a firm to be able to churn out production that benefits not just the business but the country in general. So now that you have also included leather, I see the link where even the farmers come through production to the animals. When we have the beef and later on their hide is treated into the leather you're talking about. What then is your current policy to ensure that Archer remains in line, considering that this company was dead, buried, and it laid off all its workers at some stage? It was dead, buried, until you stepped in, you bought it and you made it yours.
Well, Archer, as I said earlier, is a composite part of our whole strategy. Paramount cannot succeed without Archer succeeding. So to answer your questions, we see ourselves as one company, just two separate factories. We have taken over the brands that Archer did. They had a high quality range of shirting and leisure wear, which we're promoting, and we want to make the most of it. So, as I say, they are a composite part of our whole strategy, and we will never be in a position where we said, oh, well, let's let Archer go again and just keep with the old Paramount. It is effectively all Paramount now. But we're very proud of the Archer traditions and their brands, and we want to develop and let them enhance us rather than it'd be a simple takeover, shall we say. Just mentioning on the mining sector, I mean, that is where a lot more work needs to be done. They are a huge employer here, and we have in the past had liaisons with them to try and promote more local buying. And I think that there is a need from local manufacturers to show that they can produce to the quality that the mining sectors demand. A lot of them are international companies or multinational companies that have certain standards that they are asked to meet. There are other reasons why people don't always want to buy from the local manufacturers. But I think it is important they are taking a natural resource out of this country. They should also be investing in the future very much and well in that local production as well. Because although we have no control over their price and what they sell 100% on an international market, they do live and work in Zimbabwe. And the development of Zimbabwe should be a key strategy for them. And that work, that talk had been staged and had to be gone through, but they currently do not buy enough from the local market, in my opinion, and need to do more. But part of that interaction is for the local companies to step up and give them more what they need as well. So I certainly couldn't lay the whole blame on there. It is a two-way street, but the interaction should happen. And we should be getting the biggest sector in this country to be procuring more locally. Whichever way it is, we've got to work it.
Yes, I'm aware of the fact that the clothing industry is producing more textile than the industry actually takes in Zimbabwe, to an extent that you end up having no choice but to export. How then are you able to marry the Buy Zimbabwe mantra? What really is the problem? We are producing, but people are not buying as much as they should from their locally made products. You see them sometimes going, for these bales products, which are not locally made and which do not bring any fiscus to the economy. And at the end of the day, there is some sort of competition with the local products. Yet you are employing thousands of locals to be able to fend for their families, fend for themselves. How do you think the Buy Zimbabwe campaign should be managed in respect to such competition sometimes, which is really out of the ordinary?
Well, just firstly on the textile sector, we do export the vast majority of our cotton yarn and a significant amount of our cotton fabric. So that has not come into the clothing industry to be value added. Now that's something we can look at. It's not a question of take up. The clothing industry could take all of the output. Our problem is we only really have one textile mill still operating, and they only do cotton, and they only do it in certain weights and constructions. For argument's sake, they don't make shirting fabric here. So no shirts can be made, these lightweight shirts like this. And they will only do certain finishes and colors. So it comes down to about, of the full range of fabric we need, we're actually only producing about 6% of the fabrics in this country that we need. Now that's if we are to produce everything. So there is still a value addition within the chain that can happen with specialization in those fabrics. But it will never go beyond that until we start producing more fabrics, like blending it with polyester yarns, which is by far the biggest demand of fabric. And bear in mind, it's not the clothing industry that dictates how your clothing's made. You do when you walk into a shop. You decide what color you want to buy and what weight of fabric you want and what you want, what design you want. So it is very important that we develop our chain in that way. It is our customer that dictates what clothing they want to buy, not us. We have to make what they want. And therefore we need to then be able to demand and have a supplier that gives us the fabric and the raw materials that we need to make that garment that our customer has dictated. And likewise, the textile industry needs to get the quality of cotton lint that they can manufacture into a yarn and then into fabric and finish to meet our demands. So often that when a cotton chain or any value chain is mapped out, we have all the arrows going from the very beginning to the very end, and they all head in this direction. And I've always argued that's the wrong way around. We should have the arrows coming back this way, because it's the market that decides what needs to be produced. And it must come back here, so you make sure that you are producing exactly what the end point needs once it has been processed through the chain. And again, that's what we're not doing. We tend to produce, we say we've got cotton, let's just make what we can from it. So the imported second-hand clothing, which I think you're referring to in the bales, it is a problem. And we need to go back to the fundamental point of it. Is in wealthy countries, which obviously we're not there yet, the wealthy countries, the people there are able to donate clothes or throw out clothes that are still very usable. And their aim is to donate it to people who cannot afford to buy clothing themselves. And so those are given for free to a distributor who then sources them. They are delivered around the world. And in Zimbabwe, we certainly still have, unfortunately, a significant number of our population who cannot source clothing themselves. They're not wealthy enough to do that. That is a problem, but there is a solution there, and that this second-hand clothing that was donated for free to go to those very people could be made available to them. The problem is that it's been circumvented. Instead of going to those people that really need it, it has become a market in itself. So now you've got the people that were very needy don't get it, and number two, because it was given away for free, it can be sold at a very low price for the trader to make a profit out of it. And that price is nearly always less than the cost of the raw materials that made it. So a formal manufacturer can't possibly compete with that, because it's not a normal economic price. We now have, because it has been allowed to develop into quite a large business in Zimbabwe, we have a lot of people who rely on that income. So if you were to stop it, what happens with those people now? So it's a very emotive subject, and we all understand that, but our policy is that over time, and it wouldn't happen immediately, is that we should support the SI that was put in place, which the government is not enforcing, even though they put it in place, is that second-hand clothing should be subject to import licensing. That would enable it to be allocated to those people who can distribute to the needy, who have no other choice. And then for those people who currently have work in the trading, we're hoping that through that, because people aren't buying from them, they can buy our product now. We can employ those people in our factories as that demand is moved to us.
Yes.
And that, in a long-term view, but it's very hard to explain that to somebody and expect them to accept it when they're living day by day off the proceeds from selling second-hand clothing. We accept that. But a long-term view has to be taken on it, and some support given to those people, because it is a developed market now. But it's not a sustainable market going forward if we want to industrialize.
Yes. Wow, that's a very emotive subject indeed. But I think if the clothes are meant for charity, it should be charity that benefits. It's not a business. And when you make a business out of a charity, that becomes a problem. So I think we should call a spade a spade. And the government should be able to enforce their own statutory instrument. And the Minister of Industry, is it not the one that should be entailed in ensuring that they protect the Buy Zimbabwe campaign? They protect the Buy Zimbabwe image. Because at the end of the day, it is the local products that should make money. It is the local products that the local people should be able to make a living out of, and not making a business out of a donation. I think that is really something fundamentally wrong. There's something fundamentally wrong with how things are being run. I want to come back to what His Excellency President Mnangagwa said when he actually visited your site, Paramount Archer in Bulawayo. I want you to have a listen to what he said. I'm going to quote him word for word. He sounded very delighted with what he saw. open courts. He said the operations in this company are impressive, given that this company never closed due to COVID-19, and they're exporting 60% of their products, bringing in forex into the country. And above that, they employ over 2,000 people. That is the Bulawayo and Harare factories. So they have an impact in our economy. And we as government, we are happy with that. This was President Mnangagwa giving accolades, clapping hands to Paramount governments with your work, Paramount governments in Bulawayo as well as in Harare. To him, you are able to factor in his vision for his 2030 vision to have an upper middle income economy by 2030. So he believes that you are contributing to the fiscus. So coming from what he said, what then do you think you need to advise the government, the Ministry of Industry? I think it's led by Sekai Nzenza right now, Honorable Sekai Nzenza, on the unfair competition that you are getting from a business that is being founded on charity, which shouldn't be a business. We should call a spade, because this is a donation, not meant to be a business. And already there's a statutory instrument. So if that is going to affect the Buy Zimbabwe campaign, what is your take on that?
Well, firstly, it was a great honor for us, obviously, to be able to host the president. And we were very happy he came round, and very happy that he liked what he saw. And I think it very much proved to him that things can be done here that a lot of people don't believe can be done. And I think it's a key aspect that we continuously advise our workers, because there's a very close working relationship, obviously. I can't sew. I can't make a garment. The quality of our garments and the affordability and our ability to export is because of what our employees manufacture for us. So we must continue that relationship and the development to be able to do it and produce competitively quality garments. Undermining that, obviously, is other people who do not have to pay economic price for things. The Ministry of Industry, to be fair, I think have done what they have done. They were the ones who got the SI put into place. I think the question comes as that it's got to be enforced, and why is it not being enforced? We can ask those questions. But the reality is, at the end of the day, it comes down to us all as Zimbabweans. Rather than blaming one ministry or the government in general or whatever, if we want this country to prosper and it to be better, we all have an obligation to pay our little part in that investment in the future. And part of that is to say, let me, when I can ever afford to, if I have the option and the ability to, I must support the local industry. But it's not always about price. We all know the stories of the very simple, basic, cheap t-shirt that will come in, and once you've washed it twice, you don't want to wear it anymore because it's lost its shape, it's lost its color, it's lost whatever. So let's say, for argument's sake, it was half the price of the quality garment. But if the quality garment lasted 4 washes, you've already got your money back. If it lasts 6, you've saved money by going for a quality garment. And our locally manufactured goods, not just in the clothing sector, tend to be quality goods. But we're buying on price for a quick win, a short-term gain, which is actually making us poorer because it fails its purpose so much quicker, being a poor quality. I think that's a conscious decision we've all got to make. So it's very easy, I think we can say Zimra don't control the borders, or the Reserve Bank hasn't done this, or the Ministry of Industry hasn't done this. But we all need to play our part, and even as consumers. And as I said, I would like to see the day with taking it away from clothing, where we have an orange from Zimbabwe and an orange from South Africa, and no matter what their price is, somebody tells us what they are. And I say, you know what, I will spend 20 cents more on that one, or whatever it is, because I want to play my part. Because without everybody working together, it won't work. We've had the policies in this country where we've tried to dictate it and force it to happen. And the reality is it just doesn't work that way. It's got to be a cooperation, it's got to be a mutual understanding and working together for the future. We have a long way to go, so I'm not sure in my lifetime we'll fully realize it, but I certainly hope my children get to.
Yes.